Watch the man at the video poker machine. Nothing about him asks to be watched. A retiree in a plain shirt, a glass of water going warm at his elbow, a finger moving without hurry across a lit screen. And yet, in the time it takes most people to finish a drink, the number in front of him has climbed past $150,000. The cameras in the ceiling have a name for what that usually is, but there is no device on him, nothing tucked into a sleeve, nothing slid into a slot. Whatever he is doing it entirely in the open, with the same buttons, the same screen, the same machine that sits in front of every other player on the floor. He is not lucky. He is the least lucky man in the building, because 40 minutes before he sat down, casino security was handed a warning with his exact moves on it and told to watch for the man who knew them. His name is John Kane, a retired sales manager from suburban Pennsylvania. Over the previous 4 months, he and one partner have taken more than $400,000 from casinos across the country, using nothing but the buttons every other player could see. This is the story of the one detail he noticed that nobody else had. Not the casino, not the FBI, not the company that built the machine, and of how pressing those buttons would end up rewriting American law. To understand what John Kane did, you first have to understand that he was not a gambler. He was something much more patient and much more dangerous to a casino. He was born in 1959 outside Pittsburgh, worked in industrial sales, and retired early, in his 40s, to spend his time on the thing that had occupied his evenings for 15 years, not playing video poker, studying it. He didn't touch blackjack or roulette or any game that required him to be watched. He sat alone at a machine, drank water, and worked. He owned every strategy guide printed in the country. He owned 3 different programs that calculated the exact return on every variant of the game. He had memorized the expected payout of 47 different machines to 4 decimal places. And by his own records, he had not lost money at video poker across all his winnings and losses in more than 10 years. By the late 2000s, John Kane was not a man who gambled. He was a man who had turned a casino game into a job, which is why, when one machine did something it was not supposed to do, he was one of the very few people on Earth who would notice. The machine was called Game King, and in 2009 it was everywhere. It was built by a Reno company called IGT, a company with revenues approaching $3 billion. And by the end of the decade, its machines made up around 70% of every video poker terminal on an American casino floor. Sit down to play video poker anywhere in the country, and the odds were better than even you were sitting at one of theirs. These were not toys. They were certified gambling devices, tested and retested by Nevada regulators and dozens of state boards, generating billions of dollars a year. In IGT's entire history, no player had ever been documented beating one on the casino floor. In the middle of 2008, John Kane was sitting at a Game King in downtown Las Vegas, playing a low-stakes game he'd played 10,000 times, when the screen did something, just for a moment, that it had never done in 20 years. He didn't understand what he'd seen, but he understood that he had seen something, and a man who has memorized 47 machines to 4 decimal places does not forget an anomaly. He drove home to Pennsylvania, where he told his wife he'd be going back to Vegas, and spent the next 9 months trying to make a machine do it again on purpose. What Kane had stumbled onto was, in plain terms, a flaw in the machine's memory. The Game King had a feature called Double Up. After you won a hand, instead of taking the money, you could risk it on a single high card. The odds favored the house, so most serious players, Kane included, never used it, which is part of why, in 13 years, no one at IGT had ever fully tested how it behaved. Kane found that if you did a precise series of things in a precise order, took your winnings, went into the menu, raised the bet to the maximum the machine allowed, and then went back into Double Up, the machine forgot to reset itself. It would pay out the next hand using the cards you'd already won with, but at the new, much higher stake. In practice, that meant a $400 win with a single further press of a button. could become a $20,000 jackpot. The whole sequence was 6 button presses, in order, in about 15 seconds. Nothing hidden. Nothing but the button. The first time he did it on purpose, in a downtown casino in March of 2009, a $1 hand became $18,000 in under 20 seconds. He stayed at that machine for 4 more hours, did it 11 more times, and walked out at 3 in the morning with over $100,000. No one asked him a single question. There was only one problem with a perfect secret. John Kane could only sit in one chair at a time. A single machine spilling 6-figure jackpots in one night would, sooner or later, bring a floor manager over to watch. To turn this into real money, quietly, he needed a second pair of hands, and he had exactly one person in mind. Andre Nestor lived east of Pittsburgh, and Kane had known him for 15 years on the regional casino circuit. He was not especially skilled and not especially disciplined, but he was, in the spring of 2009, badly in need of money. He'd declared bankruptcy 2 years earlier. He had a wife, 2 children, and a mortgage he was months behind on. When Kane called to suggest a trip to Las Vegas, Nestor said yes, almost before the sentence was finished. Kane taught him the sequence in a booth at a Denny's outside Pittsburgh. He made him write it down. He made him practice on a simulator for 2 weeks. By the time they flew west, Nestor could run the 6 presses in under 14 seconds. And then Kane laid out the rules, because Kane understood the thing that Nestor never quite would. The bug wasn't the dangerous part. They were. Kane's rules were built to make 2 men invisible. For the first 6 weeks, they were never in the same casino on the same day. They flew separately, stayed in different hotels, and spoke only on prepaid phones they threw away every few days. No single machine was to give up more than $50,000 in a shift. No casino floor 2 nights running. No state revisited within 40 days. Kane took Las Vegas. Nestor took the East, Atlantic City, a track outside Pittsburgh, the tribal casinos of New York and Connecticut. By the middle of June, the 2 of them had taken around $260,000 from at least 11 casinos in 5 states, and no one had connected a thing. And then, Andre Nestor stopped following the rules. His share had reached 6 figures, and he could not sit on it. He paid off his mortgage. He bought his wife a car. In a neighborhood where everyone knew he'd been broke 6 months earlier, he started spending like a man who hadn't. Then he began hitting the same machine at the same track near Pittsburgh on back-to-back days, pulling jackpots bigger than anything that surveillance manager had recorded in his career. He had stopped being invisible, and invisible was the only protection either of them had. The casinos didn't catch the men first. They caught the machines. By late June, security teams at several Las Vegas properties were comparing notes, and they kept landing on the same strange fact. Identical Game King units in different buildings were paying out at impossible multiples to different people on different nights at different stakes. It wasn't a lucky streak, it was a pattern. On the 1st of July, IGT's engineers were told. The next day, they warned the Nevada Gaming Control Board. The day after that, the board sent every casino in Las Vegas a description of the exact 6-press sequence to watch for, which is how John Kane came to be the most watched man in Las Vegas on the night of July 3rd, and didn't know it. He sat at a Game King in the Silverton for 6 hours and won about $150,000, while a surveillance manager upstairs matched his every move against the advisory that had come in 40 minutes before he arrived. Just before midnight, 3 officers asked him to step away from the machine. He didn't argue. He left his markers on the seat and walked off the floor without a word. In a small windowless room, they played him 6 hours of his own footage and asked him to explain how he'd won. He told them he'd been lucky, and by the letter of Nevada law, that was almost enough. There was no device, no card, nothing the state's cheating statutes actually named. The police came, watched the tape for 45 minutes, and let him go. The casino kept his $150,000. He flew home the next morning. His partner was not so careful. On the evening of the 4th of July, Andre Nestor sat down at that same track outside Pittsburgh, which had received the same warning that morning, and started the sequence within 3 minutes. State police arrested him at the machine. For 3 months, nothing happened. Then, on an October morning, 12 FBI agents knocked on John Kane's door while he sat at his kitchen table with his coffee and the newspaper. He stood up and answered. He didn't ask what it was about. He had been waiting for them since July. The charge was not cheating. Nevada's cheating laws didn't fit because he hadn't done anything Nevada called cheating. The charge was federal, conspiracy to commit wire fraud, and unauthorized access to a protected computer. That second charge came from a law called the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, written in 1986 to catch hackers who dialed into corporate systems with stolen passwords. Its whole foundation was 2 words: unauthorized access. The government's theory was that Kane and Nestor had accessed those machines in a way nobody had authorized, that they had, in effect, hacked them. And the government almost never lost these cases. It had won more than 9 out of 10. It did not want to be the office that let pressing buttons on a casino floor be called legal. But Kane's lawyer and Nestor's, working separately, arrived at the same quiet idea. Look at what the machine actually was. It sat on a public floor. It took cash from anyone who walked up. It displayed a set of buttons and invited anyone to press them. The entire menu Kane moved through was part of the machine's own programming. It was not locked. It was not password protected. It was not hidden behind anything. How can it be unauthorized access? They asked. To press the buttons a machine is openly inviting you to press. The fact that a particular order of presses produced a payout the maker never intended. That was IGT's mistake, not a break-in. The argument was simple. Getting a court to take it seriously took 2 years. The case sat in motions through 2010, 2011, 2012, while the government held the line. Then, in November of 2013, the magistrate judge ruled. The heart of it was a single idea. The defendants had not exceeded any authorized access because the machine was a public terminal, and the buttons they pressed were the buttons it showed them. Producing a payout the manufacturer didn't anticipate is not, under the law, a computer crime. He recommended every computer fraud charge be dismissed. The court agreed. The wire fraud charges fell away after. The state charges had already quietly vanished. After 4 years, John Kane had won, not his money, but the argument. Here's the part that makes it worth telling. 4 months after the FBI raid, 4 years before that ruling, IGT had quietly pushed a software update to every Game King machine on Earth, 130,000 of them, patched in a few months. The flaw Kane had spent 15 years of study and 4 years of prosecution on simply stopped existing. And the money never really arrived either. The Silverton kept his 150,000. Pennsylvania seized 90,000 in cash from Nestor. Atlantic City clawed back 40 after lawyers and seizures and the computers the FBI carried out of Kane's house. The 2 men who had taken $429,000 from Las Vegas almost certainly ended up behind where they started. In the narrowest sense, they beat the house, and then the house beat them. But the ruling did not disappear when the money did. By deciding to walk into a federal courtroom instead of taking a deal, a retired sales manager from outside Pittsburgh had forced American law to answer a question it had avoided for 27 years. What does it actually mean to access a computer without permission? His case became one of the most cited in modern computer crime law. It was echoed in courtroom after courtroom, and in the reasoning the Supreme Court itself reached for years later, when it finally narrowed that same 1986 statute. It has been used to defend researchers, journalists, and ordinary people accused of crimes for using systems exactly as those systems invited them to. John Kane found a flaw in a machine, and it made him no money. But in defending himself, he found a deeper flaw in the law itself, and fixing that one changed the rules for everyone who would ever press a button they were given. The machines are still out there, around 140,000 of them still on the floor, still taking cash from anyone who walks up, still showing the same buttons to every hand that reaches for them, patched now, waiting for someone patient enough to notice the next thing they were never meant to do.